So hello everyone, I am Amish Barmate and this is my video for Unacademy Stars Program 2024. So today we are going to discuss the concept of Doctrine of Election, which is given under Transfer of Property Act. But before dwelling onto this concept, first we should understand what is Transfer of Property Act, what is its scope and extent. So the Transfer of Property Act regulates the transfer of property by act of the parties who are living. So basically it excludes the transfer of property by operation of law. This Transfer of Property Act is substantive in nature, it is codified, but it is not exhaustive. Now, coming on to the concept of today's discussion, which is Doctrine of Election. So this concept is given under Section 35 of Transfer of Property Act. Now, I firmly believe that to understand any concept, it is not sufficient to just read the black and white letters. We have to understand the concept with the help of an example. So today, I am going to just teach this concept with the help of an example. So let's say there is one village in which there are three persons, A, B and C. A are having certain properties, one of which is a land which is very fertile, and B is a person whose birthday is nearby, let's say after a few days, and C and B are very good friends. Here the C, being a very good friend of B, is aware of the fact that B is a farmer and he likes the land of Mr. A, which is fertile one. So Mr. C thought that I should give that land to Mr. B on his auspicious occasion of birthday. So here what Mr. C can do, because he is not the owner of the property, but he wants to give that property to Mr. B. So here what Mr. C did was that he asked Mr. A to transfer the property to Mr. B, and in lieu of that he gave his own property to Mr. A, which was a coal field. Okay, so that's it. This is Doctrine of Election. If we try to understand this concept with the help of a definition which is given in the barrack, then this Doctrine of Election is a concept wherein a person professes to transfer a property which is not of his own to the person or to the owner of the property, and in the same transaction he confers upon the benefit to the owner, and in the whole process the duty lies on the owner to elect to either assent or dissent the transaction. In our scenario also, in our example also, Mr. C has asked Mr. A to transfer the property to Mr. B, that is, he professes to transfer the property, and in lieu of that, in the same transaction, he is giving his own corn field to Mr. A. Now Mr. A is duty bound to either accept or deny the transaction. This is Doctrine of Election. Now we should understand there are certain conditions in Doctrine of Election. First, the person professes to transfer the property which is not of his own, like Mr. C is transferring the property of Mr. A. Then secondly, the transferor should confer the benefit to the owner of the property, like Mr. C is conferring or giving the coal field to Mr. A. And third condition is that this conferment of benefit and transfer of professing or transfer of property should be done in the same transaction, which is completely applicable in our case. And fourth, now it is the duty of the owner of the property, that is Mr. A, to either assent or dissent the transaction. These are the conditions of Doctrine of Election. Now coming on to the mode of election. Now this mode of election can be either express or implied. Now when it comes to express consent or express election, then it can be done by either word spoken or written. But when it comes to implied assent or implied election, then there are three conditions. First, if the owner to whom the Mr. Transferor is professing to transfer the property, such owner has fully exhausted the benefit which is conferred upon him. Let's say, like I have discussed, Mr. C has given coal field to Mr. A, and Mr. A did not say that he is assenting or dissenting the transaction. He just uses the coal field, and now all of the coal is exhausted. Now Mr. A is now duty bound to accept the transaction, and here there will be implied election because the benefit is being exhausted completely. Second condition is that if the owner of the property just use the benefit continuously for a period of 2 years or more. So if the coal field is transferred to Mr. A, and even if the coal is not exhausted, but if the Mr. A continues to use the coal field for a period, let's say 2 years or more, then it will be considered as an implied election. Then number 3, if the owner of the property is using the benefit, then what the transferor can do is that after 1 year, he can ask Mr. Owner to just decide or to elect whether he want to assent or dissent the transaction. And after asking Mr. Owner, if the owner within reasonable time does not answer to the consideration of transferor and just remains simply silent on his point, then it will be considered as deemed election. So here, this is 3 conditions. Now coming on to the aspect of what if the owner of the property or just decides to dissent the transaction. Because in case if he is assenting to transaction, then it is quite simple that the transferor is asking the owner to transfer the property, and in lieu of that property he is conferring the benefit upon the owner of the property. And now if the whole transaction is being accepted by the owner, then it is done. The transaction is being completed, there is sufficient consideration. So what happens if the transferor professes to transfer the property, he confers the benefit upon the owner of the property, and now the owner dissents the transaction. Now in this case, if the owner dissents the transaction, then the owner has to give back all of the benefit which was conferred upon him. But now here the thing which is to be noted is that the owner has to return only those benefits which was given in lieu of the property. Like I will explain you with the help of an example. Let's say Mr. C has given the coal field to Mr. A and asked to transfer the property to Mr. B, and with that, as a sign of gesture or good behavior, he just gave a piece of jewelry to Mr. A, and he said that your wife is fond of jewelry, so this is a small piece of gift from my side to her. Now, in case now the owner, that is Mr. A, decides to dissent the transaction, then he is bound to return only the coal field and not the jewelries, because those jewelries was not given in lieu of the property. Okay, this is the whole point. Now coming on to the rights of the disappointed transferee. Now you will ask, who is disappointed transferee? How this disappointed transferee comes into the picture? So you should understand the point that the person, let's say Mr. B, is now expecting that the property will come to him, and if the property does not come to him, then he will be disappointed. That's why it is this person is called as disappointed transferee. So there are 2 conditions here. Number 1, if the transfer is for consideration, that is transferor is giving the coal field to Mr. A, and let's say the owner dissents to the transaction, then the reasonable compensation has to be paid by the either the transferor or the legal representative of the transferor to the disappointed transferee. And number 2, if the whole of the transaction is not for consideration, it was without consideration, then it is not duty bound to give compensation to the disappointed transferee. But in this situation, if the transferor dies or became incapable to do further transaction, then the compensation has to be given to the disappointed transferee. So these are the 2 considerations or situation when the reasonable compensation will be given to the disappointed transferee, and this reasonable compensation will be amount which is equivalent to the amount of the property. Now coming on to the concept of postponement of election. Let's say in a situation where the transferor is disabled, or if the owner is disabled, he is not able to assent or dissent, then in that situation, what the law says that there are 2 conditions. First, either to postpone the whole of the election, or second, if it is necessary, then the election can be done by the competent authority. So today we have discussed doctrine of election, and we have covered 5 points in doctrine of election. Number 1, the conditions. Number 2, the mode of election. Number 3, the what if the owner dissents the transaction. Number 4, the rights of the disappointed transferee. And number 5, postponement of election. Now, in the next lecture, we will discuss another important doctrine, which is doctrine of ostensible owner. And please bear with me, because you all must be wondering that who is ostensible owner, what will be the effect of transfer of property if the transaction is being done by the ostensible owner. So these all aspects we will cover in the next video, because what similarity is being there in doctrine of election and ostensible owner is that in both the situation the transaction is not done by the owner of the property. So if you want to just improve your understanding, then please wait for the next video. Thank you so much. This is all from my side. Thank you.